Hi. Slowly but surely we've reached the 6th and last episode of our last commercial DOS Games mini-series. I hope that you liked today's episode as much as you did the last few. So, let's jump straight in. Many of the great series had their spin-offs being something entirely different than the mainline games, and very often these were not what fans hoped for and or of lower quality. Fallout had its tactics, XCOM had its incubation, and Civilization had that console abomination subtitled Revolution, and it was anything but. I'd say that it regressed more than evolved, but whatever, it's a subject for another video. Elder Scrolls had Battlespire, a first-person action RPG. Unlike its bigger brothers of Arena and Daggerfall though, Battlespire was a more contained, less grandiose, and entirely linear story. So, imagine any of the aforementioned titles but devoid out of nearly everything that made them great and entirely refocused on combat. Now, does it mean it's a bad game? Nope, it's not. It's just not on the same quality level as the others. It's more akin to classic dungeon crawlers of yore, but played in real time and with free movement, rather than the open-ended role-playing monstrosities that previous entries were. Monstrosities that many of us loved, no less. Battlespire is naturally set in Tamriel and puts you in the shoes of a young battle mage apprentice training in the titular school of Battlespire. On the day of your final test, want to become a full-fledged sword-fighting spellweaver, you discover that the army of Didra, led by the nefarious and known from the first game Mihrunes Dagon, has invaded your school and killed nearly everyone. If that wasn't enough, who they didn't kill, they captured, and one of them was your partner. So now, armed with your unlicensed but still deadly set of skills geared towards destruction and annihilation, and fantastically strong grip on a sword, and an enchanting smile to boot, you have to embark on a quest through various realms of oblivion to find and kill Mihrunes Dagon, saving your partner in the process, and then fight your way back to Tamriel. Interestingly enough, Battlespire was initially supposed to be an expansion for Daggerfall, but something happened along the way, and it was remade to be a standalone title based on action-packed dungeon crawling instead of story-driven RPG. In fact, it's like a set of dungeons torn out of the entire Elder Scrolls experience and minimized to just that. So there are no towns or cities, no shops, and no gold at all in Battlespire, and all the items that you get come from loot in combat or items scattered around dungeons. The story is served in dialogues with NPCs only, and each of the 7 included levels offers its own theme and background. So, while simplified, Battlespire may have actually been a very viable mid-step for gamers who were used to traditional dungeon crawling RPGs and did not play those modern, open-world ones before and needed something to ease the transition. What's Battlespire most notable for, however, is the co-op multiplayer, which allowed 2 gamers to complete the entire adventure together or participate in team-based versus mode, where 2 groups of players would use their characters in combat. Sadly, these modes are not supported anymore as they relied on GameSpy software, but it's worth noting that Elder Scrolls Online was not in fact the first Elder Scrolls Online. Excuse me the pun. Still, Battlespire is fine if you take it for what it is and can be a quite enjoyable action RPG romp, but if you expect another Daggerfall out of it, you'll be seriously disappointed. Do you remember kickoff football games? Or soccer, depending where you are geographically? You don't? Well, that leaves me in a bit of a pickle as I have to explain it first. Luckily, I'm nearly as good at explaining things quick as I am at flying, and I mean it both, literally in the air, and proverbially flying off the subject when talking about it, just the way I do now. But how can I fly in the air, you may wonder? Well, believe it or not, you can too, and it's rather easy, you just jump up and fly. The fact that I fly for just a fraction of a second and very short distances and that I always land on my feet is irrelevant here. The way I see it, it's flying. So, since it's time to circle back to our game's progenitor, Kickoff is a series of football games that in the early to early mid-90s were very popular and the biggest competitor to sensible soccer games before the 3D boom. And as such, they were loved by gamers all over and had perhaps smaller, but as cult following as sensible soccer games did. And player manager games were football managers made by the same company, Anco, and using Kickoff's engine to simulate all the matches. Which made them as, if not more flashy and modern looking than most other managers at the time. And Player Manager 99 is no different as it's based on Kickoff 97's engine, the penultimate main game in the series. And while our today's game is not bad and a pretty decent football management simulation in its own right, even with its 3D match engine, it was not as good as the competition and henceforth never reached any real acclaim or popularity. The most interesting thing about it though which was not reproduced by any other game in the genre at the time, at least to my knowledge, is that you could play as the teacher or player manager. So other than keeping the club running, you would also be an active part of most games. Well, I say active, but what I really mean is that your avatar would be one of the players on the team, one close to retirement age no less, and that the game would simulate all your actions in the field. Still, controlled or not, it's a fun addition, even if largely unnecessary. As in most other games in the genre, there's quite a few tactical options in the Player Manager 99, 8 different formations, and all of thousands of included real-life players are described by 8 invisible attributes and a few hidden ones too, that only the game keeps the record of. Unlike most similar titles though, Player Manager does not rate the footballers, as in it does not assign numerical or star value to them other than their market value, that is, which as we know is not a direct one-to-one reflection of one's skill, so when choosing a starting 11 and subs, you'll need to keep an eye on not only the particular positions that the players are versed in playing in, but also their other attributes, like flanking, dribbling and headers to name a few. So while the depth is definitely there, something is missing, and I can't for the life of me tell you what it is. It's just the feeling that I had when I last tried to play its series more or less 2 decades ago that made me come back to my fave at the time, Ultimate Soccer Manager 99, and never look back. Perhaps it just didn't land for me as a product, or perhaps it was just because everything, especially the matches, took so goddamn long in it. The point is I never got into it, so can't honestly recommend it. But it was the last sports management game to commercially release on DOS, and that achievement is unquestionable, even if it's only a proof that sticking to the nearly dead platform was not a way to go. Bust-A-Move Again, aka Bust-A-Move 2, aka Puzzle Bobble 2, is an arcade marble matching game by Taito, and one with 1,000 names. Nope, scratch that, that's entirely wrong. There are 3 names only, but the clones of it, especially today when mobile platforms are so popular, now these may be in thousands. The basic gameplay mechanics are unchanged from the original, and it's the same little brilliant arcade puzzler that it's ever been. So it's that simple to figure out and get into title that's devilishly difficult to master in the same time, especially on higher difficulty. You're located at the bottom of the screen, the dead center of your board, or in the middle of one of the 2 boards if you play with someone else. And you shoot marbles at the top, where more of them are attached in different pre-assigned hallucinogenic colored patterns. And your goal is as easy as they come, to clear the screen of all the marbles by shooting yours at the ones above. Marbles pop and disappear when 3 or more of the same color touch, and that's pretty much it, the entire philosophy behind it all. And now you know how to play Bust-A-Move Again. Well done you. I mean, I know that you knew how to play it already. I just needed that little win today to know that I explained it well. Anyway, sad life stories aside, when you miss and fail to form a chain and your marbles touch any other, it connects to it, adding to the ones that need to be removed, increasing the difficulty of the challenge. If at any point marbles fill up the screen or any of them pass to the bottom borderline, it's game over. And since the ceiling never stops descending and does so periodically, the difficulty is constantly progressing and keeps you on your toes and glued to the screen level after level, performing seemingly impossible on-the-fly mathematics, calculating all the approach and bounce angles like a snooker pro, while playing something that's 100 times better looking and 1,000 times more action-packed. And yeah, I know what I said, you can challenge that statement, but I do in fact find it to be more fun than billiard, be it snooker or pool. Even if the comparison is apples to oranges or apples to little old and slightly sun-dried grape. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato, carrot, onion leeks. Bust-A-Move Again is one of the easiest and most user-friendly puzzlers out there, easily hours of pure fun, and a game that millions of players worldwide fell in love with at first sight. Because of its over-the-top cute presentation coupled with cartoony looks, super smooth gameplay and very solid mechanics that proved to be addicting to gamers of all kinds and ages. Oh, and the tournament-styled variation added to it that allowed for playing against CPU or others made it even a better title than it originally was. Not to mention branching map in single player, keeping it fresh for longer, and the best of it all, level editor. Which, while perhaps unnecessary, is still something I praise in every game that includes it, as having those in is a very pro-consumer, nay, pro-gamer friendly move that deserves recognition and respect. Bust-A-Move Again is one of the most fun and entertaining puzzlers of the mid-90s, and if I'm to be honest, it's still one of these to this very day. Deadline is a tactics game simulating realistically an anti-terrorist unit and its operations. It's viewed from the top-down perspective and plays in real time. You're in charge of a special unit of soldiers and you pit it against various dangers in series of discrete missions covering various tactical scenarios. So you'll be facing fanatical cultists, blindly following their leaders, you'll tackle drug dealers and their armed two-dative goons, you'll chase down and capture escaped prisoners, and even try to stop terrorist attacks, among others. In fact, this last will take up a bigger chunk of your game time. In most missions you'll need to save the hostages and try to disarm and capture as many enemies as possible. Full-on guns-blazing approach is neither recommended nor expected if you want to complete the mission successfully. As a matter of fact, it may be impossible even, so smart planning ahead and sticking to your plan is nearly always the right call, kinda like it is in real life. I, for instance, plan to leave Hell as soon as I will be able to abandon my demonic boss and his bazillion times worse wife behind, and it will require time and effort, mainly on my side, with a touch of luck too. But as I am doing my best to leave, you should do your best to prepare and execute a perfect mission in deadline. Each mission has an extensive background about the enemies you may face, hostages, location and the likes, so you can research everything about the challenge ahead and its conditions before picking your squad and attempting to tackle the problem. So, focusing on all, even the smallest and seemingly insignificant bits of information is a must, as in the end, everything you find there may prove to be immensely helpful later on. On the other hand, you have a set amount of time for it all only, so you have to do it pronto, wasting not a second and splitting time wisely between preparation and mission execution. Not to leave yourself without time to act, or even worse, hostages executed before you even get to the mission site. Each of your soldiers is different, and while none of them are superheroes and better than the others, they all have their respective areas of expertise, which are an important factor to take under consideration when choosing the right squad. Deadline offers ability to communicate with terrorists in a limited manner, either via vidphone or in a negotiation mode. You can cut phones, gas and electricity lines to occupied buildings, and have access to virtually anything that real squad leader in a situation like that would have, which makes for a very fun and movie-like feeling experience. Sadly, upon its release, Deadline wasn't very popular, and it's hard to tell why, as it's not a bad game at all. But such is life, I suppose, and it's one of those mysteries that will forever remain unsolved. Unless you know why and can shed some light on it. Then yeah, by all means, do so in the comments below. If you like tactical games and have some time to burn, Deadline is a decent choice and you'll most likely enjoy it. War never changes. And the great nuclear war that wiped most of life off the face of the earth was no different. Brutal, devastating, but also a short one. It took but a day to lay devastation to our world, and what emerged after was a hot, dry and empty wasteland, with only small, remote communities spread over large distances serving as beacons of hope, and split with large patches of radioactive wastes full of dangers, raiders and mutated monstrosities of various kinds, like super mutants, which are large, strong, deadly and, well, super. And ghouls, which are small, weak, but also pretty much deadly, and not super at all. And mole rats, neither strong nor deadly, but I've heard of one that could talk. You could say that he was a king of his kingdom. Anyway, you're an inhabitant of one of the vaults, large pre-war bunkers that were supposedly built to hold large chunks of the population safe after the nuclear holocaust. Yours, Vault 13, however, had its water chip broken. A purification controller chip no less, without which the vault has no access to clean water. So, after a long and rather nerve-wracking game of rock paper scissors, which you've clearly not won, you're sent into the wastes to find the replacements and have only 150 days to do so. Initially, as if you play your cards right, you can double it during one of the quest lines. Fallout is a post-apocalyptic RPG set in wasteland of what was once US West Coast. The game world is entirely free to explore from the get-go, and you can go anywhere you'd like. It doesn't mean that you're equipped to deal with what you find there, but you can go wherever you feel like it. The main quest is interesting and will take you through a series of hoops to complete, but it's not overly long. Fallout's depth and length comes from hundreds of side quests, big and small, that are scattered throughout the whole game world and enhance the gameplay experience, making it feel more immersive and characters you meet more real. Fallout features very fun and well-designed turn-based combat system that uses action points as a basis for all of the movement and attacks during encounters. You can attack enemy shots or swings depending on the weapon at the various body parts of all enemies, and the choice of the target can result in increased accuracy or critical chances. After all, a head is a much more fragile appendix than the arm, at least to blunt force delivered via rapid baseball bat keys to forehead, or a series of consecutive and precisely aimed hits by small but very fast-moving lead-based objects. Naturally, as in life, kick to the groin is an option too, and when all else fails, it is something you should revert to. Note that down. But since we're on a combat, the game is built in a way that allows for completing it without ever actually fighting, by either avoiding and running from encounters, or in the best case scenario, by solving conflicts via conversations, provided your skills would allow for that naturally. Fallout is the first title in my most beloved series of role-playing games, and in my personal opinion, the best game of the entire 1997. So, how did you find this look at the last commercial DOS games ever? Do you think that the games were as good as those released in platform's heyday, or did they fall behind and it was about time for Windows to take over? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit those like and subscribe buttons below, and maybe share it too, it helps more than you know. If you didn't, then don't naturally. It was fun talking to you as usual, and I'll see you, or more accurately, talk to you very soon.